The dead reckoning, Mina's stolen skyship, is finally done for. In the last few minutes, the plucky little ship has been half smashed from its impact into the gun deck of the DSS Vengeance, and had her hull blistered and scorched by the initial instance of the explosion that ripped the frigate apart. She's then been pulled through a fissure in reality, encased in thick, crushing ice, and finally slammed hard into the ground. When the port hatch is kicked open, there is a tortured groan from her superstructure, and the upper part of the ship caves in on itself. Her flying days are over. Barbican, carrying Mina's battered and unconscious body, is closely followed out by Cadmus. He comes blinking into the light, ready for pretty much anything other than the sight that actually greets him. The summoning chamber looks something like a cross between an abattoir, a cooling furnace, and a glittering ice palace. Bloody, charred, and smoking bodies litter the ground, flames still lick around a blackened pulpit. Huge spikes of ice sprout from the floor like some sort of frozen demonic spine. A figure emerges from the smoke, trailing a sword behind her that is as covered in blood as the woman herself. It is impossible to tell how much of the blood is hers and how much that of her enemies. She looks exhausted to the point of collapse, but there is an unyielding steel in her voice when she speaks, and when she raises her sword, there is barely a tremor. I don't know who you three are, but if you're here to meet your machine cult friends, you can join them in death. Hello and welcome to The Lone Adventurer, an actual play solo RPG podcast with me, Carl White. I will be your narrator, your game master, and your guide as we follow our heroes on their journey into the unknown. For this game, I will be using the Chasing Adventure and Starforged rule sets, as well as a variety of other systems, tools, and tables as they take my fancy. A word of warning: the following scenes may contain mature themes and disturbing imagery. Listener discretion is advised. The adventure continues. Last time, on The Lone Adventurer, battle was joined. Mara went head-to-head with the machine cultists, while Tatters faced off against their leader, the voice of the machine. Realizing that she risked completing the very ritual she was trying to prevent, Tatters decided to blow the voice to bits with infernal powder, only to accidentally translocate them both straight into the demon dimensions. There, stripped of magic and facing both the voice and imminent death by explosion, she encountered the demon, Setarra. And the demon offered her a deal. Cadmus shakes his head in frustration.
The machine cult? No, of course not. Listen, we don't have time for this. I think she's dying. Barbican, set Mina down. I must tend to her at once.
Barbican complies, laying the young woman's crumpled form down with an uncharacteristic tenderness, then takes a hesitant step back. There is something different in the automaton's posture, an uncertainty in its movements. The bloody woman speaks, incredulous.
Mina Montessario. Tatiana told us about her. She said she died in an opera house attack, along with the rest of her crew, the web. How can she be here?
I wish I knew,
mutters Cadmus, only half listening.
I wish I knew where here was. Now, please be quiet. I must concentrate.
Kneeling at Mina's side, he positions his palms inches above her prone form and closes his eyes.
Thrice blessed Anchor, heed my call. I beg of you, lend me your power.
The space between his hands and Mina's body brightens, a blue-white glow growing in intensity as the ex-devotant channels the divine power of the Colossus. His body shakes, and sweat stands out on his brow, but nothing seems to happen. Mina's many wounds continue to ooze blood, and her breathing remains ragged and shallow. After long, torturous minutes, Cadmus slumps forward, his head hanging in defeat.
It's no use. The healing power flowed from Blessed Anchor, but it had no effect. It was almost as though there were no presence within her to receive Anchor's gift.
Barbican does something unusual. It clears its throat.
Cadmus, I think I might have an idea as to why that may be.
The healer's jaw drops, and he turns to the steel bodyguard come Doomspire host, aghast.
Mina? Is that you?
I'm afraid so, Cadmus. At least mostly. There's me in here, and I can sense Barbican's presence with me, and the Avatar too. It feels a little crowded.
Her voice, or at least a mechanical reproduction of it, is followed by another, altogether less welcome one.
Indeed. This is unanticipated, unwelcome. The instigator will vacate this container.
I would if I could, believe me, but I have no idea how. As my body gave out, I felt a path to a part of me that resided in here. That part that sparked Barbican to life in the first place. And I just sort of stepped in. But I can't feel a route back. When I reach out for my body, there's nothing.
Unacceptable. The instigator will depart.
What part of I can't don't you get?
The blood-drenched woman drops to her haunches, bone-weary.
Look, Cadmus, is it? The name's Mara Vale.
If your mechanical minion could stop arguing with itself at just a moment, I could really do with catching up. What are you people doing here? Where the hell is Tatters? There is a sound, like tearing flesh. Reality shifts with sickening pliancy, and that wet, weeping wound in the veil disgorges a creature fouler by far. The blasphemy wrought of flesh stands before them, rising to its full, immense height. Its cavern of hooked, curling tongues and razor-sharp teeth splits into a hideous grin.
Why?
Per Setarra,
I do believe that's my cue.
I had once again reckoned without the vagaries of the mythic GM emulator and my troublesome, spiteful dice. You'd think I'd have learned by now. With chaos factor down to 7, I'd name my scene Mina and Mara Take Stock, and I did a quick scene check. At which point Mythic threw the inevitable spanner into the works.
The scene is altered.
I was informed.
Remove an object and add a character.
The object seemed pretty obvious to me. The dead reckoning had been smashed about, blown up, frozen, and then smashed about some more. And so I checked, and Mythic confirmed that, indeed, Mina's trusty little ship was toast. The character, though. I had no desire to add someone new to my ever-expanding roster of NPCs at this point in our tale, and so I looked to my existing lineup. It seemed to me the most obvious candidate was Lord Tortemus. Maybe the ending of the ritual meant he was now able to teleport in and try to stake a claim to the ring. But Mythic had other ideas. And so I picked out the 20 most likely NPCs who might conceivably show up, rolled against that list, and out like the proverbial bad penny, popped Setarra. But rather than lead the scene with that, I decided to mix things up a bit. Just because Mythic tells you a scene is altered, it doesn't necessarily mean that the scene is altered right away. And so I first asked Mythic a few more questions, and here is what it told me.
The Doomspire activation is halted, but not reversed. Mara does not recognize Mina, but has heard her name before. As to the question, is Mina in control of Barbican? That is an exceptional yes.
I wasn't quite sure what that exceptional yes meant yet, and so I pressed on, hoping that the answer would present itself through play. Cadmus, as Mina's sidekick, made a heel move, using the Sundered Isle rules to bring her back from the brink of death, but he got a straight miss. That meant that Mina had to pay the price, and I decided that this was what the exceptional yes had meant. Mina was in control of Barbican because she was stuck in Barbican, with no way back, and with her body dying. This latest low point seemed like the perfect time for me to reintroduce everyone's favourite demonic dealmaker. So for this scene, I took some of the results of the mechanics and reordered them to build a satisfying narrative. This is a handy tool in the Soloist toolkit. We are not rigidly bound by the linear order of things. Instead, we can take a series of rolls and results, examine them from various angles, and then reassemble them into an order that is narratively pleasing. I should also point out that, for now, I am continuing to play Mina using the Sundered Isles rules, while for Mara I'm using the Chasing Adventure rules. Only now I'm playing two characters using two different RPG systems side by side in the same scene. Will that work? I've honestly got no idea, but things haven't fallen apart so far, so I might as well just keep going. This does raise a tantalizing, if slightly insane question. Might it be possible to run an entire party of PCs, each one built and run using a different set of rules? The answer probably is yes, though the saner listener might justifiably question why I would wish to do such a ludicrous, labour-intensive thing beyond finding out whether I could. Regardless, fear not, dear listener. I have no plans in that direction. It all sounds far too much like hard work, and if I'm honest, it's the avoidance of hard work that has led to this current bifurcated system situation. In short, I've been too lazy to rebuild Mina in Chasing Adventure or Mara in Sundered Isles, and so here we are, in completely unexplored territory. Truly, it is said, procrastination is the mother of invention. Well, it's said by me, at any rate, and that's proof enough in my book. Shall we see how things are going with our party and the gigantic, bloodthirsty demon? Mara's sword flashes back up in an instant. "You'll not find me easy prey, demon," she snarls, shifting into a fighting stance. "What have you done with Tatiana?" The demon chuckles softly, gesturing down at itself.
Why, this is she. Or at least it was. I've had some work done. What do you think?
Cadmus rises to his feet, fists raised in defiance, although those fists tremble, and the blood has drained from his face at the sight of this unspeakable monstrosity. The Gestalt entity of Barbican, the Doomspire fragment, and Mina steps up beside him. "Give her back," Mara snaps. "Give her back, demon, or
die where you stand. Setarra merely smirks, clearly unconcerned at the meagre forces arrayed against him.
You need not concern yourself with Tatiana's account, Mara Vale. What was taken was freely offered. I proposed a bargain, and she accepted.
Mara is incredulous. What bargain? What could you have that she would possibly want? She was ready to die to see the voice of the machine stopped. She'd hardly have given herself over to you, Hellspawn. What makes you think I'd believe any of your lies? The demon shrugs, apparently growing bored of the conversation.
What you choose to believe or disbelieve is of no concern to me. There is simply a bargain that will be made. I have what I want, and as promised, she will get what she wanted.
It gestures, and the obscene fissure it has stepped through writhes and spasms once more. A body is spat forcibly out, falling limply to the ground. It is coated head to toe in thick, putrescent mucus, rendering it impossible to identify. Another follows, and then another, until 5 ooze-encased forms lie twitching and squirming at the demon's feet.
There, it is done. You are quite right, Mara Vale. Tatters was indeed ready to give her life. I thank you for helping her to reach that point. It made this little exchange so much easier.
The bodies on the ground are thrashing now, struggling to break loose of their Icarus bonds. One hand tears free, claws at a slime-caked face, and scrapes away enough of the gunk to allow for a deep, ragged breath. And with that breath, she gasps out a plea. "No!" she croaks. "Tatters, I beg of you, please, don't do this!" And Mina recognizes that voice. It's the spider. Setarra flexes mighty shoulders, spreads its arms wide, and smiles a predator's smile.
It is too late, Saskia Kamidev. The pact is made, and the deed is done. You and the web are free. Your grandmother's flesh is mine to wear now, and this succulent little world is my playground.
There is a crack of imploding, sulphur-stinking air, and then Setarra is gone. Goodness, it's all kicking off, isn't it? The spider, back from the dead, along with 4 as yet unidentified companions who may or may not be the other members of the web. Spoiler alert, obviously they are. Once again, we had an unexpected turn-up for the books. With Setarra back on the scene, and the prospect of bloody carnage looking like a distinct possibility, it was time to up the chaos factor to a meaty 8 and roll for a scene test.
The scene,
Mythic informed me,
is altered. Reduce or remove an activity.
The only current activity that sprang to my mind was demonic aggression. Was Mythic trying to tell me that the demon wasn't craving a tasty snack in the form of a dismembered party?
That's right.
Well, that was a relief. So if not wholesale slaughter, what was on Setarra's mind?
The answer relates to the key words, triumphant and quiet.
So, no frenzied bloodletting, at least not yet. Instead, we got a spot of smug crowing, a demonic victory lap, because Setarra has now achieved the one thing he has been trying to attain all of this time, the seizure of the body of Tatiana Kamidev. With her form subsumed and resculpted into its own demonic image, the demon is now free to walk the chained world, wreaking whatever havoc he cares to inflict. Of course, that development left me with a pretty major unanswered question.
Tatters has been pretty adamant all along that the last thing she would allow to happen would be to let the demon loose. So what had changed? Setarra had always been about bargains. It had to have offered her something sufficiently valuable to sacrifice herself and let such an unholy horror loose in the world. But what? Well, it took me all of 5 seconds to realize there was only one thing the demon could possibly offer that would persuade Tatters to agree to such a deal, and that one thing was the restoration of her allies. And so I checked, and Mythic confirmed my suspicions. How had this happened? Had Setarra whisked the web away to the demon dimensions an instant before the collapse of the Opera House? Or perhaps somehow restored their crushed bodies to life after it? It doesn't really matter. For now, all that matters is that Tatters is gone, Setarra is loose, and the web are back. Orange-robed priests move in near silence between the many makeshift beds, lined up in endless rows amidst the remnants of the monastery of thrice-blessed Ankara. The soft moans and cries of the countless wounded lends the place a haunting aspect. The building, shattered by the machine cult's brutal attack several days before, now serves as a field hospital, a place of refuge for the city's countless wounded and dying, one solitary point of safety in a city on fire. Cadmus had known his erstwhile home had represented Mina's sole chance of survival, and his desperate gamble had thankfully paid off. The Hieromir of the Waters, senior priest of the monastery and Cadmus's erstwhile mentor, had realized at once the danger Mina faced, and had offered a solution, albeit a temporary one. He had been able, with Cadmus's aid, and by drawing upon the power of the pool of echoes, to place Mina's body into a state of stasis. Now, in a secluded antechamber they sit, Cadmus, Mara, the Spider, Valerian, Crater, Trace, and Sallow, staring at the body of Mina Montesario, which floats encased in a pale blue glow between them. Pain, exhaustion, and trauma are etched into every face. They look broken. It is Barbican, who alone among them remains standing, who breaks the heavy silence.
We've dealt the machine cult a huge blow, you know. What has been achieved today shouldn't be underestimated. That ritual that Tatters sacrificed herself to end would have meant the end of absolutely everything.
All eyes turn to the steel defender as Mina lets those words sink in.
And that's not all. With their leader gone, along with the Ring of Winter, the cult will be in disarray. That alone should alter the course of this civil war and set the unseen back on their heels.
When there is no response, save for some nodded heads, she continues.
The way I see it, we are left with 3 remaining goals.
The automaton counts off on long steel fingers.
First, we need to put an end to the fighting in the city. Innocent people are still dying out there, and it has got to stop. Second, Tanth remains under threat. I've warned the League of Free States, and they know where the hidden armada is based, but that's no guarantee they'll be able to deal with it. If there's anything we can do to help them, we need to do it.
Trace grunts in approval. Though Barbican remains impassive, there is a shift in the automaton's stance that unmistakably communicates iron resolve.
And last, we need to deal with the root cause of all this. The unseen and their grand design are behind everything that's happened, and it's time we took the fight to them. What do you say?
There is a long, weighty silence. Cadmus eventually breaks it.
All worthy goals, but you missed one, Mina. I, for one, will not rest until we have you out of that contraption of yours, and back in your body."
I concur,
the Doomspire adds. Mara stands. "You missed another. There's a demon loose in the world, and it needs taking down. If we can rescue Tatters in the process, then so much the better. But either way, it needs to be sent back to whatever pit it was spawned from." The spider gets to her feet, followed by Valerian, then Sallow and Trace. She places a supportive hand on Mara's shoulder. "You're right. Whatever happens, we owe it to Tatiana to end that creature." She glances up at the impassive automaton looming over her. "And we owe it to everyone to stop the unseen." Crater is the last to stand, running a thick, calloused hand over the stubble of his shaven head.
"Well, what are we waiting for? Sounds like we've got work to do."
And so there we have it. Season 3 is done. Our heroes, at least most of them, stand reunited, clear in their purpose, and everything is set up very nicely for Season 4. For this final scene, I brought the chaos factor back down to 7, envisaged a scene called Taking Stock at the Monetary of Thrice Blessed Ankra, and for once, Mythic decided not to mess with that premise. To kick off, I asked Mythic one important question. Could Mina's body be placed in stasis? Thankfully, the answer to that was yes, and so hopefully that means there is a chance that she can eventually escape her new metal body. This also gave me the opportunity to add a little bit of Ankran world building, introducing the Hyromere and the Pool of Echoes as a little bit of colour, which may or may not make a reappearance at some point. And then it was time to take stock. I ran through all of my outstanding ominous forces, crossing off the completed ones and adding in some new ones, getting a clearer sense of what was done and what was still to do. Then I role-played all that out, and in so doing, realized that from my starting point of a lone adventurer, Mina, I now had a simply enormous roster of PCs. 8, with the possible addition of the 3 members of Blue Wing taking me to 11, all told, and there was still a whole range of things for them to do. That has given me the inkling of the potential shape of Season 4, at least the initial setup for it. That intended shape, by necessity and true to form, is likely to be a little bit on the experimental side. We'll see how it plays out, and whether I stick with my starting plan, or whether the dice take me off in some new, completely unexpected direction. But I think we're going to have to wait a little while before we come to that. Not only is it going to require some fairly significant preparation, but it also feels like the right time for me to take a step back from this sprawling, world-spanning epic and take a dip into something a bit lighter. And so, in the vein of the Shadow Dark specials I did a while back, I think for the near future, I'm going to step into some shorter form, self-contained stories before Season 4. Perhaps 2 or 3-parters that explore very different territory. That will serve as a bit of a palate cleanser, certainly for me, and possibly for you too, as well as being an opportunity for me to dive into some of the weird, wonderful, and underused games lying fallow on my game shelves. I appreciate that my random side quests into obscure game systems and gonzo subgenres may not be the reason that you are listening to this podcast, and I will perfectly understand if they're not for you. But if you're willing to indulge me for a little while and give them a go, I'll be very grateful. I hope they'll take us both somewhere new. So, thank you for joining me on this journey so far. I hope you've had fun, and that you'll continue to join me as we follow where the dice lead. Thanks also to Simon Williams from Legend of the Bones for his lovely work voicing my Mythic GM emulator this season. And thanks also to the fabulous community of solo RPG podcasters, the Solo RPG Network, whose encouragement, advice, and kindness has been so invaluable since I found them. You are my tribe, folks, and I cherish you. So, all the best. When we meet again, I hope to take you somewhere no solo role player has soloed before. You have been listening to The Lone Adventurer, a solo RPG podcast played, written and performed by me, Carl White. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider telling your friends about it or leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. It really is a huge help. You can follow me on BlueSky at theloneadventurer.bsky.social. Email me at theloneadv@gmail.com or follow my blog at carlillustration.wordpress.com. You can find show notes for this episode and all others at theloneadventurer.podbean.com, where I include any links mentioned in the episode, as well as mechanics information. I also include a link to a full episode transcript. The story will continue in the next episode of The Lone Adventurer. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm John from Tale of the Manticore.
Maddie Searle from A Game of One's Own.
PJ from A Wasteland Story and the Solo Roleplayers podcast.
Simon from Legend of the Bones.
Brian Rideout from Swords Against Madness.
Carl from The Lone Adventurer.
And I'm Sharik from Roll By Myself.
And with our solo role-playing audio,
Narrative.
Actual play.
Drama powers combined.
We are the Solo Roleplayers Podcast Network.
Usually accustomed to delving the depths,
Scouring the desert,
Surviving the wasteland,
Or facing the dragon alone.
This time, we have teamed up to bring you a curated collection
of the best,
highest quality,
Most dramatic.
and diciest
solo roleplay podcasts in the world.
There are dozens of us.
So if you're looking for your next solo role-playing adventure,
roll over to soloroleplayersnetwork.com.
sample and subscribe to something that takes your fancy.
And discover your new favorite solo role-playing podcast.
See you there.